Hello and welcome to part 3 of our deep reading and deep study of the Katha Upanishad, here from Eknath remarkably clear English translation. So in the first two videos, we moved through the first 2/3 of the Katha Upanishad. It's basically a dialogue between a spiritual teacher, Lord Yama, the Lord of Death, and a spiritual seeker, a teenage adolescent boy called Nachiketa, who goes to visit Lord of Death to ask him the big question, like, what happens after you die? And so for quite a while now, Lord Yama has already been teaching Nachiketa about the self, capital S self, which means in English, which is confusing for us in English because self means my personal self. But of course, any student of Indian philosophy in English translation knows that the word self, capital S, is used for Atman. And Atman is the universal consciousness that wells up in all of us. Brahman Atman, the unborn, undying, ultimate reality, which emanates all matter, all consciousness, and all energy. And that Tatvamasi, we are that. So that's the core insight of the Upanishads, and you hear it spoken spectacularly here in the Katha Upanishad. That's why we're taking our time and going through just about every line. So let me pick up here where we left off in part 2 and take it from there. This is Lord Yama still, of course, teaching Nachiketa. Lord Yama says, "Now, O Nachiketa, I will tell you of this unseen eternal Brahman and what befalls the self after death." So he's finally getting to an explicit answer. Of those unaware of the self, some are born as embodied creatures, while others remain in a lower stage of evolution as determined by their own need for growth. There's the reincarnation map. That which is awake even in our sleep, giving form in dreams to the objects of sense craving, that indeed is pure light, Brahman the immortal, who contains all the cosmos, and beyond none can go, for this self is supreme. As the same fire assumes different shapes when it consumes objects differing in shape, so does the one Atman, or self, take the shape of every creature in whom he is present. Yeah. Nice little analogy. A burning piece of paper is the shape of paper. A burning house is the shape of a house. Fire takes the shape of whatever it's in, and the Atman takes the shape of whatever it's in. He goes on, as the same air assumes different shapes when it enters objects differing in shape, so does the one self take the shape of every creature in whom he is present. Here's another analogy. As the sun, who is the eye of the world, cannot be tainted by the defects in our eyes or by the objects it looks on, so the one self, the one Atman dwelling in all, cannot be tainted by the evils of the world. For this self transcends all. You know, we could do a whole video just on that one passage that, sort of addressing the question, why is there evil in the world? Why is there horrible, monstrous cruelty? Why are some human beings so brutally cruel? Are they Atman? Is Adolf Hitler Atman? And the answer, of course, is yes. It's a question of awareness. How in touch are you with your own inner divine essential nature? And if you're not in touch with it at all, you are a dangerous weapon in the world. Lord Yama goes on, the ruler supreme, the inner self of all, multiplies his oneness into many. Eternal joy is theirs who see the self in their own hearts. To none else does it come. Changeless amidst the things that pass away, pure consciousness in all who are conscious, the one answers the prayers of the many. Eternal peace is theirs who see the self in their own hearts. To none else does it come. There's the prize, right? Come to realize the eternal self within your own hearts. Who doesn't want eternal joy? Who doesn't want eternal peace? There's the recipe. This is like a cookbook for wisdom. Here are the ingredients. Here's the process. Get to it. Now comes one of the most beautiful images in the Kathopanishad. I've been really looking forward to this one. Imagine an upside down tree. The tree of eternity, Lord Yama says, has its roots above and its branches on earth below. Its pure root is Brahman, the immortal, from whom all the worlds draw their life and whom none can transcend, for this self is supreme. The cosmos comes forth from Brahman and moves in him. With his power, it reverberates like thunder crashing in the sky. Those who realize him pass beyond the sway of death. Realize Brahman Atman. And look at how we're using realize here. I know it's not the ordinary English way. Normally when you and I say in English, oh, I realize what you mean, we simply mean I understand the concepts you just said. Like, oh, I realize now that you wanted me to load the dishwasher. You know, that's not what we mean here. To realize, keep it literal, to make real, real -eyes, to make real. How about the word embody? Those who embody Brahman Atman, those who come to know that they are identical with Brahman Atman, not just at the conceptual level, not just as another intellectual idea to put on the shelf with all the other intellectual ideas, but those who come to truly know, gnosis, those who in the depth of their experience understand, that's the wrong word, realize their oneness. See, that's different than understanding, isn't it? Lord Yama goes on, if one fails to realize Brahman in this life, before the physical sheath is shed, he must again put on a body in the world of embodied creatures. Again, reincarnation, okay. Brahman can be seen as in a mirror in a pure heart. In the world of the ancestors as in a dream, as reflections in trembling waters, and as clear as light in the realm of Brahma, the Creator God. Knowing the senses to be separate from the Atman, the self, and the sense experience to be fleeting, the wise grieve no more. Here's that Stoic connection again, right? When you understand, as Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus taught in the Stoic worldview of the Roman Empire, when you understand that everything that happens is the will of nature, fate. Things are born, things are die. Things are born, things die. Things come into being and they go out of being. They gather together and they crumble apart. And when you have your being rooted in what is true and real, you don't grieve anymore about that. You accept the becoming and the begoing because you are in being and you know that everything real is in being. Lord Yama goes on, above the senses is the mind. Above the mind is the intellect. Above that is the ego, and above the ego is the unmanifested cause, and beyond is Brahman. Omnipresent, attributeless. Realizing Brahman, one is released from the cycle of birth and death. Brahman is formless and can never be seen with these two eyes. But he reveals himself in the heart made pure through meditation and sense restraint. Realizing him, one is released from the cycle of birth and death. Yeah, that's moksha, released from samsara. Only when you realize what you are, or in the language of Buddhism, when you wake up from this dream of separateness, this maya. Lord Yama goes on, when the five senses are stilled, when the mind is stilled, when the intellect is stilled, this is called the highest state by the wise. They say yoga is this complete stillness in which one enters the unitive state, never to become separate again. If one is not established in this state, the sense of unity will come and go. So it seems to be suggesting there's on the journey here toward realization, there's a preliminary, there's a intermediary stage where you catch glimmers of that unity, but then you fall back into disunity, and you come in and you go out, and you come in and you go out. But once one is established there, one then, in a sense, has one's root, like that upside down tree, one has one's root in Brahman. And then everything else is seen through the lens of that awakened consciousness. Lord Yama goes on, the unitive state cannot be attained through words or thoughts or through the eye. How can it be attained except through one who is established in this state oneself? Yeah, we heard these ideas in earlier passages. And here's that two selves bit again, but in a different way. Yama says there are two selves, the separate ego and the indivisible Atman. When one rises above I and me and mine, the Atman is revealed as one's real self. When all desires that surge in the heart are renounced, or let go, the mortal becomes immortal. Here's my favorite line, and we'll close on this one. When all the knots that strangle the heart are loosened, the mortal becomes immortal. This, Yama says, sums up the teachings of the scriptures. So that's the Kathopanishad. And I think you can see, if you've been here through all three videos with me, and better yet, get this book and make it a study yourself. If you've been here for all three videos, though, and you've thought through this with us, then you can clearly see why the Kathopanishad is the most beloved of all Upanishads and one of the great wisdom texts of the world. Because in disarmingly plain language, its nameless author conveys to us the most subtle and profound of philosophical and spiritual questions. How do we navigate death? We learn a lot about Hinduism, and in a way, the Kathopanishad contains the whole thing. All of the Vedic teachings are here in this one story. So that makes the Kathopanishad a really gripping piece of world literature. And a call to action, isn't it? Not only are we given incisive portraits of the paradigmatic spiritual teacher and the paradigmatic spiritual seeker, and something to attain to, if we could be as forthcoming as Nachiketa, as vulnerable as Nachiketa, as bold and as willing and as wise as Nachiketa, to know how to ask the right questions, right? Because that's all philosophy grinds to a halt if you are not asking the right questions. And this book, this Kathopanishad, is asking the right question. I know on the surface it's, is there life after death? But as we hinted at in the earlier videos, when you ask that question, you are really asking all of the other questions. What am I at my essential core? What is consciousness? What is the connection between consciousness and the cosmos? What is the material world? What is the world of energy, the energetic world? What is formless? What is form? And what are the relationships? How did we get from the one to the many? All of those questions are contained in embryonic form in that one question: is there life after death? So thank you for spending some time with us studying what I think is one of the most important philosophical texts, the Kathopanishad. Please take these videos as an invitation for you to get Eknath book and to read it yourself. And then you'll go on to the rest of the Upanishads and Iswaran's translation of the Bhagavad Gita, which we'll take up in some other videos coming up soon. All of that lay ahead. Thank you so much for spending some time with us. See you on the other side.